headlining today, all the way from London. Me. Right. What I'm going to talk to you about today is idea validation. So it's actually a follow-on from the last two talks. So we had Chris Fox was talking about the business model canvas. So he was talking about how you place your business model, the different sections that you need to put your idea in. So all follows from an idea. The day started with about ideas. It's all about ideas. David Gluckman was all about how he developed a brand and brought it through with the ideas. So one second. Shall we, let's find the slide. I've got a single slide. Okay, we're here. So it all starts with an idea. We put the idea on the business model canvas, we break it down. That's the really important thing to do. Now, Peter has gone through, he's taken out a part of the business model canvas that, in order to do idea validation, we need to focus on. So, the customer profiles. It's so important that we go to the customer profiles. Now, why are we doing all this? Well, most startups fail. The data's unequivocal here. No matter what sector you're in, no matter what territory you're in, after about 5 years, most businesses, more than 80% of businesses don't exist or they're not trading. So there is an enormous failure rate. People start businesses and most of them don't go on to be successful businesses. So it's a big problem. The number one reason for this failure is early on, people haven't validated their idea with customers. So they build products. They've spent lots of money marketing. They built a brand. They've done lots of social media. They've spent lots of money. They've launched or not launched and taken a long time to launch. But their business, for some reason, isn't taking off. And the primary reason is because they haven't researched their customers. Market research is different to validating with customers. So market research is how big is the market? What, for this particular market, where would my idea sit? It's all of what are the competition doing? That's market research. But that says nothing about what the customers that are in the profiles that Peter talked about, that says nothing about what they want. This is the key part of idea validation. So we understand that this is the reason for failure, and the important part of this is you don't want to fail fast. You really don't want to fail fast. You don't want to fail at all. Don't launch until you understand what your customers want. Don't build a product. This is all about don't doing. This is all about saying, why are we setting up a business if we don't know the customers want what we want, what we're selling? The other part to it is, of course, most people think idea validation is sending out a survey. So you send out a survey to lots of people, how many people makes it validated? Well, actually, I'm sorry to say, including in me, most people lie on surveys. They tell you what they think you want to hear. And you tick, there's 15 questions, you tick strongly agree, because you want to get through it. And that data is worse than not good and not helpful. It can lead you in completely the wrong direction. So surveys are not validation. Validation is actually what people do. And this is the key part to idea validation. So once you've looked at who your customers are from your canvas. Now, actually, Chris talked about the business model canvas. I tend to use something called a lean canvas, which is a cut-down version of that, which doesn't involve all of the parts of the business. But it's you might want to look it up, the lean canvas. Now, with the lean canvas or the business model canvas, they focus on customer profiles. Peter's talked about that. So once you're at that stage, Now you know from your canvas a bunch of questions. You've made some assumptions here. You've made some hypotheses here. And the idea validation is the science of being an entrepreneur. So this is now saying, I think, one of my assumptions from my boxes, I think my idea or this part of my idea is something that this customer profile would be interested in. I've also said these customer profiles can be contacted through these channels, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it happens to be, the channels you specify. So what we're going to do in idea validation is we're going to slowly and methodically, sorry, this is the boring part, being an entrepreneur. This is the day job of an entrepreneur. We're going to slowly and methodically work on doing validation experiments with customer profiles through the channels that we think we're going to target. And if we can't find customers, these customer profiles, through the channels to be able to communicate with, how are we going to communicate our products to them? We've already said that this idea is not something that people are interested in, or this is the wrong channel, or these are the wrong customers. So this is now about a slow, long, iterative process of being an entrepreneur. And I put here, the number one skill for entrepreneurs to learn. The number one thing entrepreneurs need, by the way, is luck. I mean, this is life. The number one thing they need is luck. But the number one skill you need to learn is idea validation. You need to be able to take from your business model canvas all the assumptions you're making, go to the customer profiles through the channels that you specified in your canvas on the customer profiles. Microphone run out. Looks like the mic's run out, actually.
Seriously?
Maybe.
Exactly.
See if you can use your magic again.
Breaking.
For me? Hello, hello, hello.
No, okay. I'll do that.
One more time?
Yes. Oh. Thank you, Judy. Give a round of applause for Judy. Okay, so where was it? So the number one skill. And this is it now. Now it's being a scientist. Now it's testing hypotheses. Now it's going out to your customer groups. And there are different validation experiments, because this is all about experiments. And let me give you an example of a validation experiment. It's weak validation, but its validation is much better than a survey where people are telling you what you want to hear. Put up a website. Now, when I say put up a website, not everybody can do that. There are things like MailChimp, simple, free to use. There are many others. I happen to use MailChimp. That you can put up a landing page with, just on MailChimp. And with that landing page, asks people a question that tests your hypothesis. So test what you're trying to see if they're interested in your idea. Are you interested in this, or this is the idea that we are developing or we're about to launch, and then get them to do something. So get them to give their email address or join a waitlist. If they do something, there's a level of interest. What's happening here is you're not asking if they're interested. They're doing something. They're not just ticking a box here. They're giving you some information. The harder it is for them, the more hoops they have to jump through, the more validation it is. So it's you can do more complex things than just asking for an email address. And there's lots of validation experiments from just putting up a web page and testing the idea with the channel. So testing the idea with putting it and people clicking through from LinkedIn. You think they're a LinkedIn profile or Instagram or wherever it happens to be. So it's about now testing and collecting data and going back and saying that didn't work. Let's alter my message slightly. Does that channel work? And going backwards and forwards. When you get a steer from weaker validation experiments, you can start to make it a bit more complex. And as you move through, and I've got a list of, there are literally hundreds of different types with weird and wonderful names. even before I get onto the names, Dropbox was a really good example of validation experiments. When Dropbox first launched, or they first came up with the idea, they weren't sure anybody wanted this file sharing service. So they didn't build it. They actually weren't even sure they could do it technologically, which is a bit naughty. But what they did is they made a video showing how it would work if they could do it, and sent the video out there and asked people, would they like to sign up to the waitlist? Big Dropbox and San Francisco, hundreds of thousands and then millions of people gave their email addresses, and it was worth them building. So that's the level of validation. You can make a video, put it up there, and get people to sign up to a waitlist. As I said, there are mock sales, so pretending you said when they click on to buy, it says coming soon and things like that. There are fake doors. There are all of these terminologies. That's probably a fake door. Broken promise tests. I won't go into them all today, but you can connect with me later. We can talk about them. Right the way through to really strong validation experiments. And so crowdfunding is a very good example of strong idea validation. People put you're trying to get money off people to help you build something. They're giving you money, they're interested. But crowdfunding, there's also something that we're developing within 12 Ronnies, and other people are developing, so we don't have to hide the idea, it's whoever executes well on this idea. We're developing a store for products, like a pre-Amazon store, where people will be able to load their ideas, their concepts, as if they're ready for sale, and collect pre-orders, and the money will be put in escrows. So, and if things aren't delivered or isn't specification, we don't release the money to the seller. So it's all about strong validation. So this thing is Crowdball that we're developing, and there's quite a few things coming on the market to do with idea validation. And I'm not keeping my own time here. Yeah, I'm okay. So just let's make sure I haven't missed anything. My notes. Yeah. The other thing about idea validation is you're not just validating the idea, you're validating yourself as an entrepreneur. If you can't communicate with customers, if you can't communicate your ideas, if you can't work the channels to speak to them and find out what they want, you're going to really struggle once you've launched your business, because that's the day job. So this is validating you as an entrepreneur as much as the idea. And that's why it's so important. And it's really, really important when you come to looking for investors. A validated idea, if you're happy that you validated the idea, you might be able to bootstrap it. You'll say, it's worth me borrowing some money or using my savings or friends and family. And if you haven't got access to that, there's not enough capital, it's a much better proposition to investors to say, well, I know what customers want. Here's the data, not research, not surveys. Here's data saying through these channels to these customer profiles, and here's what I've collected. Much easier to collect money from people, from investors, if you validate an idea. But it's the important thing, it's the number one skill, in my opinion, for entrepreneurs, to validate their ideas. And when I started, I'm a veteran now of entrepreneurship, 35 years of being startups, there wasn't the internet. We couldn't do that. You don't need to be selling something on the internet to validate the idea. The internet is just a way of communicating. And we're all on it. Almost everybody that you're trying to validate with is on the internet in one shape or form, whether it's business to business or business to consumer. Finding out their interest in that idea before you build it is so important, because it costs money to build things. And the next talk, by the way, is going to be about product science, building things. But I can't stress enough the key of going through the process of a business model, whether it's a lean canvas, business model canvas, focusing on the customer profiles and what channels to communicate with them, and then being an entrepreneur. Experiment after experiment after experiment until you think, I cracked it. And it takes a long time. But that's what being an entrepreneur is. And that's idea validation. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yeah, one question over there. Hand up straight away.
Thank you. How we collect that data? So
Sorry.
how we collect data?
Yeah.
So you said not survey. We just launch say video online, and then we have reaction from people. But then we need to also see segments, because then we can devise exactly who will be interested in our product. So I really need to know which a name of a software or Google.
What you're looking to do now is you're looking to define. Oh, sorry. I'm doing that without my. What you need to do now is define who you're targeting. So it's all about, rather than just putting a video on the internet, you don't know who's replying to it, and you don't know anything about them. You're running the experiment now. You're looking at who you're targeting. Let's take TikTok as a channel. I'm not on it. You're never going to see them. My daughter's on it. You're never going to see me on it. Really? But so you start to define the age groups, the channels they use, a little bit of marketing spend. Instagram through the Facebook marketing is a really good way of spending very little money targeting people. You're targeting a particular audience, but then you're collecting data. Now, I mentioned MailChimp. So MailChimp's quite good. The reason I like MailChimp is not because it's the easiest to make that single landing page, but if you're collecting email addresses, they're collected in a GDPR format. They're collected so you can further use them. So it's finding the software that you like that's performing the sorts of things that you want. So it's different types of software and targeting. But honestly, you probably shouldn't be paying for any software at this stage. There's plenty of free stuff out there. You've got to do the work now. There's no shortcuts to this. There's no shortcuts to this validation. Does that help?
Yes.
Any other idea validation questions, experiments? So we're all ready to test our marketplace with our ideas. Because that's what it is. One of the things that Trudy has asked people to do in the room here is to give a form with their idea that we're going to put onto something called Ideas Nest. An Ideas Nest has been set up so we can capture ideas and then get mentors to help with the idea. But it's also a really good way of sharing the idea with other people to see if they're interested. Now, you're not going to ask them why they're interested, that's a survey. But if you get them with the idea to do something, download a brochure or something like that, you're actually getting them to now jump through a hoop. So that but you shouldn't be paying to do idea validation.
Would it be the same for business to create an
Yeah, it's almost the same. What we're talking about here is with businesses, you've got your business model canvas that Chris talks about. So everything is the same. You're defining who what your business is about. As Peter explained, now your customer profiles are business profiles, or people within the business that you're targeting within those business profiles. So it's the same methodology, and now it's how you contact them. So it's then the channel, because it has to be the channel that you're going to be selling through to them. So you've got to think about your channel, and then it's about contacting them. You're probably not going to contact. LinkedIn's a really good channel for contacting business people. So that's often, so if you're looking at selling something business to business into a particular manager in healthcare, then you're searching on LinkedIn, you'll bring up that list, and then you start targeting them, you start validating them with your video or with whatever you've created, then to give you some feedback.
So registering the content.
So really for each company and implementing website, logo, would that be beneficial to communicate them with make a presentation?
Thank you so much for that question. This is a brilliant question. So can we do this without registering a company and logos and all the things that go with building a business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're testing your idea. You don't want to test your idea with your faith, what you think your brand's going to be for a start. You're not testing your brand. You're testing your idea. And as you get closer to that, you test it with your brand. So don't go out testing with what you think you're going to call your company name. Don't form the last thing you do until you need to. And I know we're coming on to a company formation talk later. Don't form a company unless you absolutely need to. That's spending money. Don't spend money unless you need to. And particularly if it's ongoing money and you have to register accounts and you form the company, don't do any of that unless you need to. Let's say a bank needs you to, or if you need to transfer finance. So yeah.
So my question is, if I'm targeting both the sellers and the buyers, do I make that different videos for them? And also, if I'm putting the video or the product or whatever, yeah, do I put it on the website in two different pages? And one more, sorry. And the other thing is the video which I make, can I give it to influencer whom I believe have my target customers?
Yeah. The answer to all of those is a yes, but to break that down a little bit more. So you've decided you're going to use video as a good way of communicating what your idea is. So you've made it, which is a great way. People love what we have vision. Then, but the videos you buy and sell, they're two different customer profiles here. So you don't want the same video because you wouldn't be targeting them when you're selling to them on this. So it's two different videos. And it may be through two different routes. And then you were saying, sorry, we were, so there were two parts.
Yeah.
Oh, the influence. Oh, the influence is a good one. If you think that your product is right for viral marketing and influencers to do it, that's an assumption you need to test it. So that's what you think it is. It might not be. So yeah, test it. If this is going out and influencers are ones that pick up on it, then you tested an assumption here. You validated an assumption. Yeah? Another question? So Jake, this is your job. Wrangling.
In the process of assessing the sections influencer, you mentioned fake doors and on sales.
Yeah. I mean, these are, I don't know who makes up these terms, but it's, what it's doing, they've just given a term to, so let's say you haven't got the product ready to sell. No one can order it. You haven't, we're not doing a pre-order where you set up your site to take money like we're talking about crowd wall and people can pre-order something. There's no e-commerce behind it because you're still validating and you're wanting to do this cheaply without setting up an e-commerce site. So what you do is you put your product up there as if it's ready to sell at $17.99 or whatever it happens to be for our US audience. When somebody comes along and they click on buy, of course there's no e-commerce site behind it, and it can say coming soon. Bit frustrating, but we're entrepreneurs now, right? We're trying.
The email, that's important.
Yeah, we're collecting the value. They clicked. The other thing you can do with the internet, which is brilliant, is they clicked. You can get all this analytics to say, okay, how many people came to my page and how many people clicked on that particular product or that particular part of the screen. That starts to validate. And now if you've got different ones that you want to validate next to each other, you can start, it can be really clever, it gets quite technical, I want you to keep it simple, but that's a fake door. What was the other one?
The mock sale.
A mock, yeah. Well, a mock sale is taking them through the whole process of doing something until you go to pass your money and it says, it gives a message saying,
Out of stock.
yeah, all of those. It's naughty, but we're entrepreneurs. And I mean, one of the things myself and Jake love to say is, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. You know, it really is. I mean, do things ethically, but it's much
Your
better.
Honour.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to have to stop here because I'll be around to talk to you. Thank you very much.